In the unforgiving autumn of 1991, a young man named Corey Fay vanished into the rugged embrace of Oregon's Badger Creek wilderness. What began as an anticipated elk hunting trip transformed into a chilling mystery that would haunt a family and baffle seasoned investigators. His disappearance, etched against a backdrop of snow-laden peaks and dense forest, would ignite a desperate search, whisper of foul play, and ultimately reveal a truth far more complex than anyone could have imagined. Corey Fay, a vibrant resident of Portland, Oregon, meticulously planned his fifth hunting expedition for November 23, 1991. His mother often remarked that Corey was born with the urge to hunt, and his excitement for this trip was palpable among family and friends. On the evening of November 21st, he loaded his truck with gear, including a .308 rifle and 2 boxes of ammunition loaned by his grandfather. The following afternoon, November 22nd, Corey left school early, stopping at his parents' car lot. During their conversation, Corey light-heartedly recounted a past hunting trip where he'd gotten lost. His mother, sensing his jest, simply reminded him to call once he reached the Dalles, a city north of the wilderness. Corey was not hunting alone. His companions included Mark Malpin, a family friend who had hunted with Corey 3 times before, and Mark's father-in-law, Daryl Fincher, along with his brother-in-law, David Fincher. On the evening of November 22nd, all 4 men gathered at Mark Malpin's wood stove store in the Dalles, spending the night there on the floor. The next morning, November 23rd, the group rose early, ate breakfast, and arrived at the hunting area around 7:00 a.m. Corey and Mark traveled in Corey's truck, while Daryl and David followed in Daryl's. Both vehicles were parked on the east side of United States Forest Service Road 2711, just south of a nearby intersection. In a practical gesture, Corey left his truck keys in the exhaust pipe, ensuring easy access for anyone returning early from the hunt. With arrangements made, all 4 men headed east into the dense woods. After walking several hundred feet, the group split. Daryl and David veered south, while Corey and Mark continued east. They maintained this trajectory for a few hundred more feet before turning south and descending a hill. At the bottom, they began an uphill ascent into a thin section of forest. Mark's last sighting of Corey was halfway up this hill, to his left. Mark continued hunting, occasionally glancing for Corey, but felt no immediate concern. As the day progressed, Mark finished his hunt and returned to the trucks. Corey was nowhere to be seen. Growing uneasy, Mark took Corey's truck and began driving the surrounding roads, searching. Back at the parking area, he rendezvoused with Daryl and David. The 3 men continued their search, their calls echoing through the quiet woods. They claimed to hear approximately 20 to 30 distant gunshots, some in rapid succession, but none seemed to originate from the direction Corey had taken. By 2:00 p.m., hunting was abandoned entirely. Their sole focus was locating Corey. David drove the roads, while Daryl and Mark scoured the terrain on foot. They discovered a small, dying campfire near the roadside where Corey was last seen, but could not definitively confirm he had built it. As darkness descended, a gnawing fear set in. Corey was lost. Back at the parked trucks, Daryl fired 2 signal shots from his rifle, hoping to guide Corey. As night fully enveloped the wilderness, they left the area and drove to Ty Valley, where they reported Corey Fay as a lost hunter to the Wasco County Search and Rescue Coordinator. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Search and rescue teams were alerted that very evening. Over 15 agencies joined the effort, deploying professional trackers and highly trained search dogs. The Air Force contributed numerous hours of flight time, utilizing both planes and helicopters equipped with heat-seeking devices. On the ground, 15 square miles were meticulously searched, while 100 square miles were covered by air. Up to 350 search personnel converged on the location, relentlessly pursuing any trace of Corey. 3 days into the search, heavy snow began falling in the higher elevations around Mount Hood, adding another layer of peril to the already treacherous conditions. Yet, the search was not entirely without leads. Teams found evidence suggesting Corey might have constructed a makeshift shelter in a meadow and had at least once used a space blanket he carried. A week into the operation, on November 29th, searchers discovered a trail of 3-day-old footprints. A deputy on the scene declared, We believe strongly they may be the tracks belonging to Corey Fay, and was probably the most significant evidence found on the entire search. The footprints matched the size and type of shoe Corey was wearing and were found 2 miles from where he was last seen. Described as appearing erratic, they painted a picture of someone disoriented and struggling. Later that same day, a tracker reported hearing someone shouting, "Help!" across a canyon in the general area where the footprints had been found. The searcher twice asked, "Can you shoot?" Both times, the question was met with a chilling, "No." A deputy later noted, "We were never able to determine the exact origin of those noises. We checked an area extensively, but we didn't come up with anything." Late that evening, a helicopter equipped with infrared sensors was dispatched to search the canyon and reportedly detected something just before midnight. At first light the next day, a team painstakingly searched the area, but found nothing. Despite these significant developments, the sheriff's office made the controversial decision to suspend the search operation by November 30th. They concluded that the voice heard in the canyon was not Corey Fay's, though they offered no explanation for this belief. The sheriff made it clear that the search would resume only if new evidence emerged. This decision, it appeared, was at least partly driven by financial concerns. The extensive search had generated a bill exceeding $200,000. The Wasco County Sheriff later expressed frustration, stating it was not fair that Wasco County has to pay the bill for people who come here from outside the area, are careless, don't have the proper training, and get lost. The Fay family was devastated. Corey's father, Joe Fay, defiantly stated, "We're not going home without our boy. We heard him cry out for help. There's tracks showing he was there. You can't just turn your back on that." The family subsequently put out a call for volunteers, and with their help, actively continued searching the Badger Creek wilderness into December. Given the intensity of the initial search and the complete absence of Corey or any of his personal items, detectives were brought in to investigate other potential aspects of the case. On December 1st, they interviewed Corey's parents, who described their son as happy, helpful, with friends and a job, making it impossible, they felt, for him to have run away. While at the Fay residence, detectives spoke with Corey's grandfather. He recounted a conversation from about a week before the hunting trip, where he and Corey had discussed what to do. If losties stay in one place, build a shelter and fire, and wait for help. The grandfather reiterated his belief that Corey was a happy kid with no reason to disappear intentionally. On December 2nd, detectives contacted Daryl Fincher at the volunteer search camp. He detailed his and David's route after splitting from Corey and Mark, walking south for about an hour, taking 2 45-degree turns, then heading north back towards the trucks. They unknowingly walked past the parked vehicles and emerged near Road 2711, where they saw Mark driving Corey's truck north. Mark picked them up about 10 minutes later. Daryl recounted their subsequent efforts to hunt and search for Corey until dark, at which point they reported him missing. December 3rd brought 7 specialized dog teams from Ogden, Utah, flown in to assist. These dogs were trained to locate people under adverse conditions and even to find deceased individuals. The first day with the dog teams yielded no results. On December 4th, 2 teams reported their dogs had hit on Corey's scent, but the trails ultimately led nowhere. On December 5th, detectives interviewed David Fincher at his home. He largely corroborated Mark and Daryl's account, but added a new detail while driving the roads searching for Corey. He saw a silver Dodge Dakota truck. Detectives noted David's visible nervousness during the interview. His face was flushed, and he appeared shaky. He also took offense when detectives asked about Mark Malpin's rifle 2 days prior, stating, "If it was my rifle, you wouldn't get it." He then added a cryptic remark, "I don't want to tell you anything that you could use against me later." On January 31st, 1992, Mark Malpin was interviewed regarding his willingness to take a polygraph test. Mark was initially reluctant, citing concerns about the test's reliability. Detectives reminded him that polygraphs were inadmissible in court, but could offer closure to Corey's family. Upon learning that the Fays desired him to take the test, Mark agreed. The results of this polygraph were not disclosed in the sheriff's report. At some point during the investigation, The Wasco County Sheriff's Office contacted the FBI for assistance, suggesting suspicions of foul play. The FBI dispatched at least one agent who conducted independent interviews with Corey's companions and family members. Corey's grandparents, speaking to a local paper on January 2nd, stated that 2 weeks prior, the FBI had indicated a strong possibility that he was abducted. The next day, they were told, "The chances are slight, but it's still possible."